but, you know.
Good evening. It is 6:30 p.m. and I am going to call the June 10th, 2025 Pleasant Hill Planning Commission meeting to order. Please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. One nation. Thank you. May I have the roll call?
Commissioner Chiang,
Here.
Commissioner Colfin. Here. Commissioner Mascaro. Commissioner Vavrick,
Here.
Commissioner Weber,
Here.
Commissioner Weiler is absent. Chairfield.
Here. And may I also have staff introductions?
Certainly, seated across me is Shannon DeFrosia, seated to my right, Andrew Shiflett, myself, Troy Fujimoto, all from the Planning Division, and Leticia Galeazzi from our Engineering Division. Oh, Haley Crowfoot is also on in our audience as well. She'll be up here later.
Okay, thank you. And then I would like to open public comment. Public comment is welcome at this time to address the Planning Commission on any item, with the exception of items scheduled for the public hearing. There is an opportunity for the public to comment on other agenda items at the time they are discussed. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have any items for public comment not related to the items we have later this evening?
None received.
Thank you. I will close public comment. Then I would like to open the review of the minutes from our last meeting, which was May 13th, 2025.
Motion to approve?
I second that motion.
May I have a vote?
Commissioner Chiang,
Yes.
Commissioner Colfin,
Yes.
Commissioner Vavrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Chairfield.
Yes. Okay, and then I would like to open the public hearing portion of our commission meeting with item 6.1, ENT 2024-0041, Vincent Manor minor exception, architectural review permit and tree removal permit, 20 Donkey Flats Court. Do we have a staff presentation?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Chairfield.
Thank you.
Again, this is a hearing to review a proposal for a new single-family, single-story residential home. A brief description, the site is currently vacant, and the project would construct a new single-story home, just over 2,000 square feet of interior floor area. It would have a covered front porch and rear porch totaling about 1,000 square feet between the two. And there would also be a detached garage totaling 576 square feet. The applicant is here tonight requesting a minor exception for a reduced front yard setback. And they're requesting a 21.53 foot setback, where a 25-foot setback would otherwise be required in the R20 zone district. And finally, the application includes the removal of a valley oak tree to accommodate the detached garage. On May 15th, 2025, the application was reviewed by the Architectural Review Commission. At that time, the ARC reviewed the architectural review permit and tree removal permit and recommended approval of both to the Planning Commission. And they recommended that with the staff recommended conditions of approval. Here's a look at the site. It is north of Grayson Road, just at the end of Butner, turns onto Donkey Flats Court. Looking a little closer, the site is located on the south side of Donkey Flats, and it actually doesn't share a property boundary with the public right-of-way. It's actually accessed via a vehicular easement that I showed dashed in red there on the upper left-hand side of the property. Here's a look at the property and the easement, I should say, from Donkey Flats Court. Once you hit that easement, it's downslope towards the property itself. So it's not highly visible from the public right-of-way. And here's a look at some of the neighboring properties. Here's 30 Donkey Court, another single-story home. and Donkey Flats Court at the corner of Butner and Donkey Flats, as well as 1924 Butner on the south side of the property. Here's a look at the existing site plan. There was an existing pool on the site and bathroom as well that sort of predated the development and subdivision of the property. There's also a storm drain easement that traverses from north to south across the site. It's shown in a dashed line right here. And there's Grayson Creek running along the southern property boundary. So all of these, along with a number of mature protected oak trees, sort of constrain the applicants with where they could place the home. Here's a look at the proposed site plan. You can see the house there centrally located on the property and the detached garage on the left-hand side of that heavy dark dashed line. And so the house is respecting the setbacks for the two side yards and the rear yard on the south, as well as a creek setback along Grayson Creek, where it does not comply with the setbacks and is the result or the subject of the minor exception request is the small portion on the north side of the home. It's about 53 square feet or 35 square feet, I'm sorry, that encroaches into that front yard area. And so here I've shaded in all the setback areas and the storm drain easement to show you a little clearer where on the property they're sort of constricted with where they can place the house and garage. Immediately to the east of the house, there are some mature oak trees as well. The applicant stated that they tried to move the house back, but they would have to remove trees to do so because it would encroach into the drip line. And so as a result, this was where they were able to place the house with the least amount of encroachment or elimination of trees. They're also proposing new landscaping throughout, consisting mostly of mulch and bark as a ground cover with new flowering plants and shrubs to complement some of the existing site features like large rocks and the foliage along the creek. Here's the first floor plan. Again, it's a single-story home, so everything is on the first floor, living areas and bedrooms and bathrooms. And if you look here, this is the area that would encroach into that front setback. So it's this little piece of their primary bathroom that would encroach. Here's the roof plan, pretty simple with some barn-style dormers allowing light into the main living area. The home is a barn style, if you will, sort of construction and design type. See if my spotlight works. You can see the bathroom area here. This is the part that projects from the house and encroaches into that front setback right there. So this is the front of the home and this is the rear. And here's rendered elevations showing the colors. There's also images in front of the commissioners this evening with materials and samples as well. So to conclude, staff recommends that the commission conduct a public hearing, consider any public testimony, and discuss the issues raised in the staff report, particularly relating to having practical alternatives for the minor exception. As a reminder, one of the findings for a minor exception is that there's no practical alternative. And so staff is looking for direction from the commission on if they would be able to make that finding. If appropriate, the commission can adopt the resolution accepting the CEQA exemption and approving the architectural review permit, tree removal permit, and minor exception subject to the recommended findings and conditions of approval with any additional conditions as provided by the commission this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff?
I do.
Okay.
If this project had not requested a minor exception, it would have been reviewed by staff and not needed to come in front of the planning commission. Is that correct?
Correct. It would have only gone to the Architectural Review Commission.
And should the minor exception not be approved by the planning commission or recommended for approval by the planning commission, could the applicant revise and have the permit reviewed by staff?
If they eliminated the encroachment, it would not require a minor exception, and the Architecture Review Commission likely would have approved it with final determination at that hearing. And in fact, staff, based on previous discussions, staff could review minor exception requests because it's only a 14% encroachment. However, we weren't able to make the findings and didn't feel comfortable and brought it to the commission this evening.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mhm.
Okay.
This is just understanding the presentation, but you indicated that the front setback is the issue, but that is the side of the house. Is that the front setback defined by a flag lot? Because the house is facing, am I correct in understanding that the house is facing the side setback?
Yes.
Okay.
The house is facing the side setback because of the way the lot is as it exists. They arrive via that easement on the north side. Because the easement crosses that property boundary, that is what staff determined is their front yard. So the front yard's on the north end, and north is facing up in this image. However, they situated their house facing the west because they'd like the driveway to come down. And they also have that storm drain easement that is unbuildable area. So they wanted to use that area at least to be able to have as a driveway and to pull their vehicles in.
And I assume it's perfectly fine to drive over a storm drain. I guess that makes sense. That
Yes.
Okay. It's
Mhm.
constructed for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Vavra?
Just so I'm clear where the encroachment is, I'm looking at the drawing that has a crosshatch. If we could get the one up for that shows where it's, where a portion of the building is going into that front yard setback.
It's sheet GR2, if that's helpful.
I don't have that plan available in this PowerPoint presentation, unfortunately.
Okay. As I'm looking at this crosshatch section, is
That-
anybody else confused about where the 25 feet would be and then how much is encroaching? Because we have, when I look at this, it's like 13 point, I'm just looking at this, it's 13.38. And then on the side, it's 3.14. Is that whole slashed area, what does that actually mean? Because that's more than the, 25? That's more than the number we have for the encroachment. It's more than 36 square feet. So I'm not sure what that crosshatched area indicates. Because that comes out to like 45.9 square feet on that drawing. But I don't know that I'm interpreting this correctly.
The area that's cross-hatched on the site plan that you're referring to is shown on this site plan right here. It's this portion of the house that crosses over into the shaded area of the setback. So I shaded the setback area. This is the front yard setback here. And this portion is that cross-hatched area where the clicker is, the mouse pointer. That's the area that is encroaching, and it equates to approximately 35 square feet.
So I'm reading these numbers wrong, or this is actually a larger area than the In other words, this is not, I don't know whether, I'm-
It's 13, pardon me, Commissioner Vavrick,
Oh.
but it's 13.38 feet in length. So, oops, I'm so sorry.
in,
In length. So I'm using my clicker here from this point to this point is 13.38 feet in length.
and then.
It's
then
at an angle, so it's not perfectly rectangular. One side encroaches to a depth of 3.47 feet.
Okay,
And that's why they're asking for 21.53 feet.
thank you. Yeah, that was just a mistake on my part. I was
Okay.
taking it at that height all the way across. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair. So not sure if this is a question for staff or for the applicant, but I'm trying to get my mind around what the issue here is. Is it that there is no alternative design that will address the encroachment, or is that we are too far into the design to redo the design to address the encroachment?
Mhm.
The way I read the staff report, it makes me think that there is an alternative design that could address the issue. Yet I read from the applicant that there might not be. So maybe that's a question for the applicant.
I'd be happy to answer that or let the applicant answer as well. But I believe that from a staff perspective, the property is vacant. And so there's always a possibility to design a home that complies with the setback provisions.
Right.
The applicant had a design and worked very hard on this design and felt like they were at a point where they couldn't redesign the home to comply and are therefore requesting the minor exception. And I think I would let them answer from here if they'd like to.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, then I would like to open the applicant presentation. Is the applicant here? So you have 15 minutes for presentation, and then we might have some questions. Sounds like we're gonna have some questions afterwards, so.
Okay. Don't have much more of a presentation. Andrew's done a really good job with presenting the facts. To answer your question, it's a little bit of both. So from inception, when we first obtained ownership of the lot, we probably have done close to 15 different iterations of a house. The first 3 designs, we tried to stay within the setbacks, but everything caused us, in order to get the basic amenities that we wanted, the master bedroom at appropriate size, that type of thing, we would have to go up. Neither one of us are getting any younger. We didn't want to have a second story, so we tried to keep it as a single story. As we went into this, the reason why they have the bump out is because with the original design, the master bedroom was smaller than the other 2 bedrooms. And we can't reduce the size of the other 2 bedrooms because of the way they sit on the side of the house, the proportions of the front back side of the house. So we didn't want a master bedroom bathroom section that was smaller than the other 2 bedrooms. So we went back to our design team. They suggested we do the kick out of the bathroom, which includes the toilet room and the shower room. That's the bump out, is the shower piece and the toilet room. Once we got through the process, then we found out that this was going to be an issue. Going back to redesign that is going to cost a ton of money, which we don't have to redesign this house to make it fit. We're constrained by moving the house to the back, farther back to the east, because there's some mature Valley Oaks, several which we really want to keep. We don't want to remove the one we have to remove, but that's where the garage has to go. As Andrew said, when we first designed the house, the design was to come down the driveway. The garage was going to be at the back of the house. We ran into a problem with that is the turnaround radius and the width of the driveway wasn't enough to meet the requirements. So that forced us to move the garage to the west corner, which is really the only place that the garage can go.
Would also have required us to remove 2 trees to put the garage there. One that was right at the corner where you would turn, and the other one that is, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of light. It's by the
Patio
middle
section.
of above the patio. There's one in the middle of the patio, and then there's one just adjacent to it. but there's a tree that is right along our property and the property that's next to us. We also thought that the front of the house was where we were putting the front of the house. We didn't realize the setback for the front, the 25-foot setback when we originally messed with this design was being interpreted as that side of the property. Because if it was on this side of the property, we wouldn't have an issue. Maybe now with a garage we would have, but
So where we're kind of at now is to move the house, it's going to require request to remove more mature trees. The tree that's in the center of the patio area on the west, southwest corner is a very mature, very large valley oak.
beautiful tree.
And we certainly don't want it. It sits in a patio. The patio has been in the family and was poured by her father. It's been there for well over 40 years. We don't want to remove it. We share the backyard, but currently right now with her brother. It's kind of a family use type thing. So we really don't want to have to lose the patio. If we move the house back, we run into not only removing the trees, but insurance issues because we won't get insurance coverage with trees that close to the house for the fire requirements. So this is really the only place we can't go forward because of the storm drain. And if we take that bump out off, it severely narrows the bathroom. And I think you can understand nobody wants a very narrow bathroom in their house. And so that's why we're asking for the minor exception. We have, I believe, the RC package, I don't know if you have it, but the neighbor that is at 10 has signed and wrote a letter, is aware of the encroachment, does not have any issues with it, understands it, and it won't affect his property line or his backyard in any way. So that's why we're asking for the minor variance. That help explain?
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
So let me ask just a really simple question. You're only 3 feet at most into that, less than that as you move to the other end. What would prohibit you from just moving that house 3 feet? 3 feet.
Because
So that's all you've got. That's all you are, and it's this much. So it's hard for me looking at the drawings to see why that would be a problem, but I don't know the site as well as you do, so.
yeah, to move it, we can't move it south because then we encroach on the creek bed.
So it is right bumped up against the 15-foot setback from where the creek starts to slope down. We have to be 15 feet back from that. So we can't, we actually, what allowed us to meet the creek setback was that little pivot, which put the bump out into the 25-foot setback. So it was like a wiggle. That was, how do we fit this into this space? We even moved it forward a little bit towards the patio, but we can't go any further because we have this huge mature tree that would go over the house that would prevent us from getting insurance.
I mean,
So
if you went back.
we went back.
If we can't go back because of the tree issue that we discussed. We can't go north, obviously, because we're already encroaching. We can't go west towards the storm drain because then we start with the front porch, we encroach
Too close to
on
the
the storm
storm
drain.
drain easement.
easement.
We built the best house we could to fit in that space without doing a second story.
No, I understand. Thanks for the explanation.
So I have a question. So just to be clear on what we're talking about, so you've got the main body of the house and then there's the porch right to the east of that, which is new. But then the patio is the square portion that is even further east of that.
Right, the porch will butt up to the existing cement patio. The porch sits up a few feet off the patio.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to ask an ignorant question, so I apologize ahead of time.
Sorry.
I'm not an architect. I imagine you looked at this every possible way. And, but just, indulge me here a little bit. Is there a way to maybe limit the footprint somewhere else, not the bathroom, to address it? And so you're not necessarily making the bathroom smaller, but maybe the other side, if that makes sense?
Yeah, we did. Currently with the current design, can you move to the floor plan? I'll show you with the current floor plan design. So little difficult to see in this, but the center section is the living section. In order to, the only other way that we looked at to move that bump out in is to shift the whole master suite towards the living room. Well, and that severely limits the size of the living room, and it changes the portion of where our front door is, which doesn't then match where the center of the house line is. So it throws everything off, and it limits the inch required. I think we're required to have 4 feet width on the entryway. We would be less that if we moved it in that 3 feet.
We also put the closets, so we had the closets out on the right-hand side for the second and the third bedroom. We had it bumped out on this side, on the right side of this picture. We put them back in the bedroom. So we took that, we kind of squished that. We moved that wall over and had to eliminate the closets from being a bump out. So we have a little bit smaller closets, but they meet a typical bedroom.
So we also,
Space.
as part of the idea to look at other designs, we also had our design team look at taking the toilet room and the shower portion and either moving it to the front of the house to extend. The problem with that is, number one, then we have that narrow bathroom that we're talking about. Number two is it pushes the front porch out, which then we encroach upon the storm drain. So then we talked about pushing it out back. Well, if we push it out back, we're then pushing into the tree line, which causes us to either severely trim one of the oak trees to keep it away from the house in order to get insurance, or getting rid of the tree to not have that problem whatsoever. So no matter where we tried to bump it out, we ran into another problem with fitting it into that small spot. Because basically we have a 50-foot wide, a 40-foot wide by 50-foot wide area between the setbacks that we had to fit it in. And so
It was a 40 by 50.
what we did is we kept the bump out in the design and pushed for the variance because we considered that the bump out is a very minor, hence the name, but minor footprint into that section. And it does not interfere with the driveway. It doesn't interfere with any street access, any neighbor backyards, anything. So that's why we're continuing to request for the minor variance.
So when you started the design process, you weren't clear what was going to be the front yard, the side yard, the rear yard.
Right. When we first started designing, we had not submitted for the permit yet. So we started designing and we assumed that because we were facing the driveway, that would be the front yard. So the east or west side would be the front yard.
It's a flag lot. So it's like, which is the front and which is the side was challenging for us to interpret.
Well, it's after the fact, but always good to check with the staff.
Well, yeah, that was our initial house designs, which is not
Right.
this one. We then learned the requirements and we started with this design of a house, which was actually the initial design of this house is bigger. So we had to work with them to shrink it down in order to fit the style of the house. It originally had 3 shed dormers on the front.
Not shed,
Or,
regular door.
Yeah, regular dormers on the front. It had 3 on the back, and it was wider. We had to shrink that down, which then kind of forced us to put the barn dormers to make it look right and not make it look like these little tiny dormers sitting up front. So I can tell you, we've gone through many, many design practices, and we spent a lot of money trying to redesign the house to fit. And it virtually came down to be honest with you, it came down to the fact is we don't have any more money in the budget to redesign the house. If we do that, we can't build the house. So it's kind of where we're at. That's why we're looking for the minor exception.
Any further questions? Okay.
The floor plan, it appears that the major structural bays are at lines 2, 4.
Mhm.
So if grid line 2 moved towards page right, that would require redesign of the structural system.
Completely. What trust is everything. And hence is why it would be cost prohibitive for us, because it would basically say, let's go back and redesign a brand new house again.
And relaying. Commissioner Chang. Your mic
Yeah.
isn't on. Mic.
Your mic's not on.
Oops.
You have to say that all again.
We hear
Say it
I
all
heard.
again. I'm sorry. Do I have to say that all again?
No.
Okay. That was my one question, and squaring off the house on the plan, lower left-hand corner had been looked at in previous iterations. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any others? Thank you very much. I'm going to close the applicant presentation. I'm now going to open public comment for this item. Are there any public comments for this item?
None received.
Okay, then I'm going to close public comment. Commission discussion. Any thoughts we want to share? Any motions?
Well, I guess I can start if that's okay.
Please start.
So my initial thought here is I really, really want to find a path to make this work. My struggle is, as I'm reading the staff report, what I'm hearing, okay, is that there is an alternative to what we're seeing that would address the issue. Hearing from the applicant, I'm hearing there isn't. So I'm trying to understand sort of where we are. So I want to ask staff again this question, just so we try to get on the same page here. In your review of the design, you think that because the lot is vacant, that it could be redesigned to address the issue, but it's cost prohibitive based on what the applicant said, right? Am I reading this right?
Yeah, staff reviewed it to see if it met the findings. The first finding is that there's no practical alternative that exists to the proposed for the proposed exception, and having the word alternative is a bit subjective, and that's why we're seeking commission input. To
Can I ask another question on that?
Mhm.
Practical. Could be open to interpretation too, no?
I think it could be.
Okay.
When we review a lot of minor exceptions, it's for an existing structure where maybe the plumbing is located in a certain portion of the home and you couldn't trench to the back of the house, you wouldn't get the right slope. Costs would be substantial. So we have reviewed those types of minor exception requests. But this one's a little different because the site is undeveloped.
And so, and I apologize, I'm just trying to walk the argument through, my thought here. I feel the applicant made several attempts to sort of try to figure this out, okay? 35 square feet in my mind isn't incredibly sort of large area that we're talking about here. I don't think we're setting a dangerous precedent by sort of doing this. But having said that, I'm still trying to get a sense from the rest of the commission whether you feel like there is a finding here. I can sort of make an argument, but I kind of want to hear maybe what the rest of you have to say. I thought that your presentation was very helpful to help me understand where you're coming from. I know this is very difficult, and just so you know, I really like the design and I understand sort of why you're doing what you're doing. And it's a vacant site now, and you're certainly improving it. And I think that's what we should be encouraging and supporting. I just want to make sure that, we don't do something that then opens up sort of other issues. And again, I'm okay with getting there if the rest of the commission sort of feels that that's the conversation that we can't have.
I'd like to speak on that topic. I appreciate the constraints at this site, the creek constraint, the mature trees at the location. I feel like you are working very hard to fit a reasonably sized house in a constricted space. I don't want to set an unreasonable precedent on behalf of the commission, but I do wonder when we're looking at a redesign, often with an existing building, a minor exception is easier because it's already built and there's obviously construction costs. But redesign also comes with costs. So to prioritize construction costs versus design costs, it's not as much. But that goes to your point of, what is reasonable, what is practical. So a minor exception of 3.5 feet into the front setback. We've seen this in existing construction. It's been approved. So in this case, I'm kind of agreeing with you, Alex, that if it's not setting unreasonable precedent, I don't want to say, because I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but it feels that they've worked to redesign to get something that was at this level. So to ask them to do that again feels unreasonable. So that's where I'm leaning, but I don't want to set a precedent when it comes to sites that are just in the design phase versus existing builds.
Do you have any comments?
Yes, I would have to agree with both Commissioner Kaufman and Commissioner Weber's comments. I'm hesitant to grant the minor exception in that this is a vacant lot, understanding that there are a lot of constraints that you worked very hard to fit the footprint in. I do think that their relative costs for redesign to get to a house that you will be happy with is a reasonable ask.
Thank you. Do you have any comments or?
Okay. I think I agree with the last two commissioners, and I think Alex was going that direction. I'm not sure, but in any event, we rarely get anything like this. It's still in the design phase. So there are alternatives. It's hard to make that finding when the house is still being designed. I realize that there's money associated with some redesign. I think the applicant did a good job of talking about some of the constraints of the site, but I also, he also said that there was a misunderstanding on his part as to what was the side yard, the front yard, and the rear yard, even initially. So that's the kind of thing that really it is the applicant's responsibility to work that out before you get into designing the house. So I realize it's a relatively small amount, but I too don't feel like we have to have a proper finding, and otherwise we are setting a precedent. So I am reluctant to approve this at this point in time.
Okay. Then do I have a motion?
So I'm just curious if you had any thoughts on that.
I don't know that I have thoughts that haven't been shared. So the way that I looked at this particular item is that, there's effectively, I think, 4 findings that were being, that are in play here. And everything, staff agrees is fine except for one. So this project is largely fine, and it's just here in front of us because of these 30-odd square feet. Now, that becomes a bit of an issue because, and I understand staff's concern, because this is not a situation where it's a home that has already been built and you are trying to add on to a bathroom or something like that, and there is a physical constraint. So in my mind, if I'm going to make a finding that there is a constraint, that constraint in my mind has to be quantifiable. So I don't know what the quantifiable constraint is here. I'm looking at this floor plan. I will readily admit that it's a pretty efficient floor plan. I don't readily see, it's going to take some work to reorder that side of the house. I mean, you can't. So in deference to the applicant's concerns, I do think that that's going to be work. So I'm looking at this floor plan, and I don't know how you keep the general sense of this particular floor plan and just move a few lines around and comply. I don't think you do that with this floor plan. That being said, I don't know what the quantifiable constraint is here, if that makes sense. So I understand that is expensive and that's very hard. And I understand that when we do a design project, the more money we spend in design, the less money we have in finishes and things we can touch and live in and occupy. But I don't know. To be fair, I don't know what costing too much is. So that's where I'm at right now.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Not talking about redesigning the house, but rather shifting the house. In other words, we're hearing it will get too close to the drip line of a tree. Is that really a constraint? I mean, a utility easement is a constraint. A creek setback is a constraint. The drip line of a tree, really, I would have a hard time agreeing with that. So, that's why I can't make that finding, is that in fact, I think there is a viable alternative even with this floor plan. So, that's something to explore, because we have not heard that can't be done. We've heard that is the constraint, the tree. So, maybe deal with the tree. I mean, that's kind of it. So it would be different if all of the constraints were easements or something else that, like you said, that could be quantified. Okay, here's the easement, here's the setback from the creek. We can't make this work. But in fact, that isn't the case. So I just can't make that first finding given the situation that exists on this site. But I think that it's not going to require a whole redesign of the house in order to make this thing work.
Any further thoughts? Then would somebody like to make a motion?
I don't have it up.
Coughlin, you're looking pensive. Do you have anything more you want to say?
Well, I'm reading the motion here. The motion in front of us is approving a minor exception, right?
So what do we need to do on the?
So,
would this be-
let me just sort of restate, because I don't think it came off as clear. I don't particularly have a reason to deny this particular project. 'Cause I do feel that the reason why we're having this conversation is staff felt that there is a place to have a conversation to potentially look at ways to allow the exception. So I'm willing to allow it. It doesn't seem like the rest of the commission is. So I'm okay with that. But I just want to be clear that I am fine with moving forward as is, because the resolution in front of us is approving the exception.
Yes, but all we do is adjust that. In other words, the
that's fine.
motion
Right.
would be a resolution of the Planning Commission, City of Pleasant Hill, denying a minor exception, architectural review permit, and tree removal permit, ENT, for a new single-family home at 20 Donkey Flats Court.
I did understand you as saying that.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
Okay. Thank you.
So did you make a motion to deny?
That's the motion.
Okay,
That was your motion?
Yes.
I second.
Okay, may I have a vote?
So our vote, just for clarification for staff, the motion was to deny the minor exception. So if we vote yes, we're denying.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I just want to make
No,
that
no,
clear.
that was
Thank you
good.
very much.
Commissioner Chiang,
Yes.
Commissioner Colfin,
No.
Commissioner Vavrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
and Chair Field.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item number 2. This is ENT 2024-0117, Kid Time Daycare and Event Space Use Permit and Architectural Review Permit 548 Contra Costa Boulevard. Do we have a staff presentation? And we have a storyboard. That's heavy. Careful.
All right, thank you. So the second item before the commission tonight is for Kid Time Daycare and Event Space. And this is located at 548 Contra Costa Boulevard. The full request before the commission tonight is for a use permit to establish Kid Time Daycare and associated event space within an existing 5,830 square foot tenant space within an existing shopping center. The daycare component of the business would serve a maximum of 70 children and 15 staff members. The hours of operation would be Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. There is an associated active learning and event space that would be within that 1,900 square feet of that 5,830 square feet tenant space. This would be only open weekends and holidays, so off hours of the daycare, and would serve up to 20 guests. And the idea with this would be to hold either children's birthday events or other kind of active learning spaces on the off hours where the daycare was not in use. The project also requires an architectural review permit for a new just over 1,000 square feet fenced in play area along the north side of the building. Some site landscape modifications, minor storefront modifications to the existing tenant space, and the installation of privacy graphics. This component was reviewed by the Architecture Review Commission, which I'll get into some of their comments as I go through the presentation. And then finally, the project also requires a parking reduction for 20 parking stalls. This is for the entire site. As I mentioned, it's a multi-tenant shopping center with a shared parking lot. So this would be for the entire site. The applicant, as part of this project, is not reducing any of the number of stalls, but does require this reduction, which I'll get into. So here's the site. As I mentioned, it's located at 548 Contra Costa Boulevard. The specific tenant space is starred on the image here. So it's the corner tenant space. Was a former futon shop and painting with a twist, and it's now vacant. And the zoning is retail business. And so you'll see here the existing shopping center. There are right adjacent to this is CJ's Saloon. There's some restaurants as well within this shopping center and Lamps Plus. So here's the proposed site plan. Highlighted in blue is the tenant space. And the outdoor play area is shown here in that kind of orange yellow color. I'll get into some of the site landscape improvements, which are also shown in the center median of the parking lot here. But the existing parking lot, as I mentioned, will remain with the current number of parking stalls, which is 128. And here's the existing floor plan. You can see here just some minor modifications, mainly to consolidate some of the existing entries and replace some of those doors with matching storefront windows. So there's a consolidated entry into the daycare use. And then the removal of some landscaping along the side and rear to accommodate the outdoor play area and path of travel. And so here's the proposed floor plan. where you see their consolidated entry for the daycare use, and the outdoor play area running along the north side, and then obviously the interior, walls and such to divide it up for the daycare use. This portion shown in blue will be then utilized for the event space on the holidays and the weekends. When it's the daycare use during the week, that entire space will be used for the daycare, but only the blue portion will be used for the event space. So here's the outdoor play area. As I mentioned, it runs along the entire north side of the tenant space, shown in green here. The applicant is proposing to enclose it with a 6-foot high redwood fence. The fence itself will feature this picture frame with designed with these vertical elements throughout to help break up that long expanse. And then the interior will have a rubber playground, kind of matte floor tiles, which are both of the images, and then a sample of that is shown on that board that I passed out at the beginning of the meeting. When ARC reviewed the item, they made 2 recommendations related specifically to this component. The first one being that because the 6-foot tall fence that borders the play area runs along the property line, which then abuts the property to the north where there's a vehicular access easement, they were concerned just to make sure that there was reinforcements, and recommended that there be reinforcements incorporated into that fence design, such as maybe a concrete wall or a curb or bollards if possible, but just something that would provide further protection from adjacent vehicle traffic. The recommendation has been included as a condition of approval. Currently, the way that it's written is just that some reinforcement be incorporated to the satisfaction of the zoning administrator and engineering division. The other area is shown in the site plan in that red circle. The play area itself needed to have, it has gates on either end to provide egress out of the play area itself. And the northeasternmost portion of it has then a landing for the path of travel. ARC wanted that landing, which is shown here ending at the gate, to just extend a little bit further north and be enclosed in a concrete curb, just to further protect the corner of that play area and further buffer it from vehicular traffic. And so that has been also incorporated as a proposed condition of approval. And so moving on to some landscape modifications, as I mentioned, the existing planters along the north side of the building and then along the side are being removed, both to accommodate the outdoor play area and then the required path of travel outside of the play area. Total, about 410 square feet of landscaping is being removed. The site itself as a whole is currently non-conforming in terms of its landscape requirements. So any further loss in landscaping would have to be mitigated to not bring the site into further non-conformity. And so the applicant is therefore proposing to replace that landscaping by expanding and squaring off portions of the existing center median in the parking lot to add additional landscaping in this area. And so the total replacement would be slightly more than what's being removed, 496 square feet. So they would be slightly increasing the existing amount of landscaping on site and keeping the site out of further non-compliance. And so as part of this, the applicant is proposing 8 crepe myrtle trees scattered throughout this area to help enhance the existing landscaping, and then various shrubs. There's a better picture, various shrubs and other elements that are compatible with the existing landscaping on site. And then I'll just note that expanding and squaring off the median does not encroach into the required parking. The existing parking stalls are still compliant with our standards. The other element that is proposed as part of the project that our Architecture Review Commission reviewed are the proposed privacy graphics. Given the use as a daycare, the applicant is proposing these privacy graphics on the storefront windows. The sample is included here in the image and also on your board here. And the ARC was supportive of the use of privacy graphics throughout the entire storefront, all the windows and the doors, given the use. They did request a recommended condition of approval that the height of those graphics be that they align with the top of the door heights, so they not go up the full length of the storefront window, but instead align with the top of the door. They felt that that would still provide privacy for the user, but also then allow light in through the top couple feet of the windows. And so that also has been included as a condition of approval. And so finally, looking at the parking reduction request. So as I mentioned, this is a shared parking lot for the entire shopping center. It's an existing 128 stall parking lot. Our municipal code for shopping centers requires 1 parking stall for every 250 square feet of floor area. So looking at the entire floor area of the site, that would equate to 148 parking stalls. Since there's only 128, that's where the 20 stall parking reduction comes in. And so the applicant, in order to address this with their new use, did submit a transportation analysis. It looked at both the requirements of the daycare itself, but then also analyzed the site as a whole and looked at all the existing tenants. The assessment conducted on-site surveys to look at what the peak operation of the parking lot was, and found that even though our code required 148 parking stalls, in reality, given the uses of the site, at peak time, there were still 40 stalls that were available. And so when you then look at Kid Time's operation, which would require 18 parking stalls, even with the 40 excess, the report concluded that there would still be adequate parking on site to support this use. And so I touched on all these, but I will just want to mention the ARC did review this on the 15th of May and recommended the Planning Commission approve the architecture review permit with those recommendations that I mentioned. So these have been incorporated as conditions of approval. So just the protection measures and the fence, extending that curb of that landing for the east gate of the play area, and aligning the height of the privacy graphics with the entry doors. And so discussion items tonight for the commission, given that this is a use permit, the findings for the use permit and some of the considerations for the commission tonight are compatibility with adjacent uses, especially given that the tenant right next door is a bar. Staff noted in the staff report that likely much of the activity associated with the bar and the outdoor area would be at different hours from the operation of the daycare, but still wanted to bring that to the commission's attention. The other thing is that this is a potential loss of a tax generating commercial, commercial space within the city. So just that's up for the commission discussion as well. And then finally, the police department did provide some input that I wanted just to pass on to the commission tonight, that they are actually in support of the fence being a solid 6-foot tall fence, given potential operations associated with the next neighboring bar tenant, and just providing that additional visual protection for the use. And then also that there are some transient activity in the area, and so that fence would also help potentially buffer that, but just things for the commission to consider. And then other items would be the architecture review commission recommendations and then the parking reduction request. And so given all that tonight, if the planning commission feels you can make the findings to approve the project, then staff is recommending that the commission accept the CEQA exemption and adopt the recommended resolution approving the use permit, architectural review permit for Kid Time at 548 Contra Costa Boulevard. I'm here if you have questions. I do know the applicant team is here and they have a presentation for you as well.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for staff right now? Yes. No?
Just a couple of questions. First, any other applicants for this site?
Not that the city is aware of.
And any concerns from the neighbors?
No, we did receive, they were in your packet, two letters both in support of the project, but we did not receive any letters from any adjacent neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for staff?
Yes, one question in regards to the event space parking. The parking analysis, did it take into account the potential, I think I saw somewhere in the staff report of a 20-person event? So that could be 20 extra cars.
Given that the daycare use was determined to be the more impactful in terms of parking, that was what was analyzed, given that it would generate more parking than the event space.
I see. Thank you.
Questions? No. Weber? Commissioner Weber?
Thank you. We've had a few childcare facilities come forward. Has the city looked at what our need is for this use? Because I do understand we have a need, and we've had several other applicants recognize that. And so I'm just curious if there's any studies that document what that is looking like going forward.
No, nothing that the city has brought forward or commissioned, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with no other questions for staff, I understand the applicant is here and has a presentation.
Hello, I am Leah Rosenthal-Cambick. I'm one of the owners of Kid Time. My co-owner Jessica Brimmer is with me, as well as our admin, Kirsty Johnson. The three of us are the admin team of Kid Time. Thank you so much for hearing us today. Just want to give you a little background about our company and give you an idea of why we're here today. We have been around since 1984. Combined, the three of us have about 75 years of experience running childcare centers. So we feel like we definitely know the ins and outs and the issues and the pitfalls that can happen day to day. We have obtained and still have retained in good standing 2 conditional use permits, one in Pleasant Hill and one in Walnut Creek. And as of next week, we'll be operating 5 sites in Pleasant Hill and Walnut Creek. We understand there is a very deep need, and I have a slide, I'll address that shortly, Commissioner Weber, the need in the area. And we do primarily serve working families, which makes up a significant percentage of Pleasant Hill residents. We are highly reputable and in good standing with all agencies. Childcare is a need, not a want. Anyone who is a working parent knows that when you don't have childcare that is consistent and available for you, it is not a good direction to be going. So we really wish to just provide as many spaces of our high quality programming to as many families as we possibly can. Kid Time has always felt that one of our missions is to work closely with our community and to create community amongst our sites. This is again, what kind of sets us apart is the ability for us to kind of just dig in and do it. We are, I've heard people say, if you want something done fast, ask a busy person. I think ask a busy woman. Preschool teachers, we can get anything done without, any fanfare. We find ways to pivot. So just a few of the key issues that we've addressed in with our application. The first one is parking, and we did have our traffic and parking study done by Abrams and Associates. He did find that although we do share hours with some of the neighboring businesses, that our peak times are not the same, and that by the time our people have left is when other places in the shopping center will get busy. And we are always very on top of our parents. I have a few parents that are here tonight who can attest. 2 to 5 minutes, you're in and out at drop off and pick up, because we do want things to keep cycling and we don't want people queuing and being in the building for too long. In the past, we've had, in other use permit hearings, we've had to discuss noise. We have laid out our building in such a way that the infants, who would presumably be the loudest group, would be farthest away from the other businesses. And we also are excited that the Paint with the Twist building is between the main preschool and CJ's. So we actually had visited down there a few weeks ago on an evening, and we could hear CJ's music through the wall. And it didn't bother us, but we realized that they probably wouldn't hear us even talking, because if they're playing music in the bar, we should have a nice buffer there. Traffic, again, we have had a study done, and we do not feel that there will be any issues with traffic. All of our sites, we are very staunch about our drop off and pickup procedures. We don't mess around, because everyone's in a hurry in the morning and in the afternoon. So we will go out and move cars and ask people to pull forward or exit if needed. And we do have policies in our written handbook, so parents are always clear. All of our sites have a different configuration, so they're all a little bit different. And lastly, neighbor disruption. We are not bordering any homes. There are no residences nearby. We do have neighboring businesses. I did speak with the owner of CJ's, who's next door, and he is supportive of us being there. We had a conversation, and the landlord has also stated that he is a small business owner and understands our needs, and I think we'll be able to work together very well. We did have a successful meeting with ARC a couple of weeks ago, and we're happy to replace the landscaping that needs to be replaced on the north side to create our playground. We agree that we do need a well-designed vehicle barrier. We do hope that it will be the least encroaching on the children's space, because it's a long, skinny space, so we want to use it as best as we possibly can. And we are reviewing several possibilities, including the concrete curb or the partial block wall. So Commissioner Weber, this is to your question earlier about the need and the shortages in the area. We took over this site, Kid Time Junior, in September of 21. By October, we already had a wait list. That's 1 month. By November, we did not have any infant spaces until 2022. So we're already now pushing out a year. By 23, we had to say we have no space for infants or toddlers until 25. And a week ago, my director reported her next infant spaces are not until 2026 September. And if you can imagine, those infants are no longer infants by that point. So it is tight out there. We're opening another location right now in Walnut Creek, and we've actually almost filled our infant site. We haven't even opened yet. So this should tell you I do think we're wonderful. I think we do a great job, but I don't think this is because we're so wonderful. I think it's because there's not enough spaces for infants and toddlers in particular. Lastly, we do want to address the other art community space, and we really want to use that for community use. I have heard for years from parents that there are just not enough places for kids' birthday parties. They're extremely expensive. I actually did a post on a mom's group a year ago just asking people about those birthday parties, and I had 50 comments, all people saying they're so expensive, we're out of ideas, there's only Chuck E. Cheese, there's not a lot of options, the parks fill up. So we see this as an opportunity for our families and other families to rent the space out on the weekend. Super simple, come in, do a little art party, bring your own pizza, and you're out the door. And we think that's going to be a nice way that we can use that space on the weekends, and also for mom's nights and community events and things like that, only obviously when we're not there. During the school day, it will be in use, and we will have the children, they'll be able to do art pretty free, because it's set up for art. In fact, it even has a drain in the floor, which I've been hoping for the last 25 years. I've been looking for a place that had a drain in the floor so we can do our art and wash it away. So again, that's a little nerdy, but I had to admit that. But this is just one more way that we think we can really foster that sense of community and use the space. I also will add that our landlord was very excited, because where we are located, we'll be able to be bringing people in from other cities as well, who will frequent the other shops in the shopping center. It's right near Target, Home Goods, all the places that parents need to go. So we're hoping that will kind of offset the revenue piece, the tax piece of us not being a retail business. So long and short, we have the experience. We are extremely passionate. We know how to meet this serious need, and we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I have just one simple question, and I just want to confirm, I'm not sure I understood this correctly when I read through it. The width of the play area is 6 feet? That's not right.
Believe it was 9.
9
It's
feet.
not very, it's not very deep, it's
Deep.
very wide.
Very long.
So the way it
Okay.
will work is each of our age groups will have a chunk of it that will belong just to them, including the art space. There's area behind the art
I
area as
see.
well. So we'll be able to spread out a little bit.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
And I have one follow-up question to that. The outdoor play area is sufficient for the number of students who you're planning to have out there?
Yeah, so that would be up to licensing, and what they will do is they will limit the number of students we can have out at a time.
Mm.
So each area will be licensed for a certain amount of children. So, and we have that at all of our sites that have use permits. We have to, one class is out, they come in, another class goes out kind of thing. So it's sort of they cycle in and out. We couldn't have all 70 out at the same time. That wouldn't happen in that space.
And are there any provisions for planting in that outdoor area?
In the children's space?
In the children's side? on the children's
We do
side, sorry.
planting at all of our sites. That's something I'm sure we would love to do. We don't have a plan for it right now, but it is something we've done at every other one of our sites.
And play structures, I see we have the sample of the pavers.
Yes. We
But-
don't plan to have a big structure because of the space. There's not enough room around it for the fall zones. So, bike tracks and climbing things, and there's all kinds of other things that we can do. We're very creative, but we're not going to be putting in a big play structure. We also didn't want it to, them to be able to be higher than the fence and see over and see pet boys and that kind of thing. It's not really what they want to be looking at.
Thank you.
You mentioned CJ's, that you could hear the noise from there through the wall. Are you planning to do any improvements that would limit that noise on your side?
I don't think so. I don't think it will be disruptive to us because that's the art space that we heard it in. We couldn't hear anything from the futon shop. So when we were in that part of the building, the buffer was plenty, which is where the napping will happen. And, kids will be going down for naps over there. So I don't think so. If we need to, we could always put in some paneling or something like that. But we enjoyed the music. We often play music while the kids are doing art anyway. So we figure we'll either be playing our own or they'll hear what's next door if they have it on during the day. And that was in the evening. We didn't hear music during the day. So
Are there any other accommodations you've had to make as a result of having CJ next door?
not that I'm aware of, no. I'm really kind of leaving this up to, this is a parent choice and a parent decision.
Right.
If people are uncomfortable with it, we have other sites, there's other places they can try to go, but I have not had feedback from parents with, an enormous amount of concern about this. So that's, I think, something that needs to be a comfort level of the person who enrolls. I mean, some people only want us to be in a neighborhood, others, they feel more comfortable if you're not in a neighborhood. So it's really a personal choice.
And then I'm not quite sure whether this is the right time to address it, but just so that you know, I think I don't have any specific problems with this project, but I do have a specific problem with that fence in the back. And I know you've had discussions with staff about that, but I'll just sort of preempt what I'm going to be saying to the commission, which is that I really think there needs to be at least a 2.5 to 3 foot concrete wall and the fence on top of it. Is that something that you've been thinking about, or?
That was one of the options we were considering, yes. As long,
Okay.
we're open to what will be the safest buffer without encroaching more into the play art.
Because the issue of a buffer is a very big one for me.
Yes.
I would say that's the major concern I have.
Yes, and we're in
About
agreement with
the
that. We want it,
project.
safety is the most important thing,
Thank you.
of course.
Through you, Chair. So just a couple of questions. Just to clarify, you are okay with ARC's recommendations?
Yes,
Okay.
we were in agreement.
And then you've been doing this for a while, obviously, and I just want to get a sense, because one of the things that we need to talk about whether or not this site is appropriate for this use. So I'm not here to dictate how to run the business that you've been running for a long time. So just wanted to hear from you that you do either think or don't think that this is a good site, which,
Yes, I can definitely address that. I think it is an unusual site on first glance. What we really like about it is that it gives us so much space. The space is huge. And we're coming from a very tight little space in a downstairs of a church right now. So we will just feel like this is the Taj Mahal. And then having the buffer of that other building where we can, I mean, a huge part of Kid Time and what we're all about is creative art and expression. And so for us to have a space that is only for art is really very appealing to us. We can run our circle times in the classroom, keep everything nice and clean, go into the art room, make a huge mess, clean them up, wash them off and have them back over for their nap time. So for our purposes, yes, we think that it's going to be a very good site for us.
and I know you've done a traffic study, but you're not concerned with the site being on a pretty busy street?
I'm not, because all of the activity is indoors and in the back. And, we're very careful with all of our sites. Mayhew is our largest site right now. It's on Mayhew Way, which is not the biggest street, but it's become a thoroughfare because people use it to avoid treat. And we've had no issues. Our parents understand what the rules are, and we have to remind them sometimes to move through the driveway and things like that. But in this site, no, I don't have any concerns about that.
And then the last question is about the event. 20 people seems a little light.
Well, I'm thinking more children's parties. So
Okay.
we're not thinking of
Right.
having ragers and big,
But even
huge-
with children, when I go to one of those, I feel like there are hundreds of them. May not be
Sometimes it
100,
feels
right?
that way.
It just feels like it.
Yes, I think it may just feel that way. I mean, most people, I think when they have, especially preschool age parties, they're inviting 8 to 10 kids maximum. That's a lot of kids. And one parent would come per family, or if they're a little older, parents may not stay. They may just drop off and pick up.
Okay.
So yeah, we
I-
would be keeping it to that.
I think that's the
smaller
plan is drop the kids off and go to CJ's.
group. I mean, if you're smart, no.
Convenient. You might have to. As you can tell, I have kids.
Yes.
And it's summer.
Yes. Oh, yes. No, my 13-year-old's home this summer too.
And so I guess you'll just monitor the 20, is that like a hard cap that you just
Yeah,
don't take?
Number we were playing with, I think that's a comfortable number where it wouldn't overload the space or the parking.
Okay.
I don't see us doing anything bigger than that. I think that's probably the majority.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open public comment, and I have one card from Gretchen Salter. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I'm really, excuse me. I appreciate you hearing me today. My name is Gretchen Salter. Excuse me. And I was a Kid Time parent for 6 years, from 2012 to 2019. And I remember attending a similar planning commission hearing like this in Walnut Creek prior to the Mayhew location opening. And at that hearing, the neighbors were concerned about two main things. The first one was noise, and the second was traffic. But after that building was opened, the facility really had no complaints. Kid Time is and has always been a very good neighbor. They followed all use permits while still providing exceptional care for all of the children. Regarding noise, I remember driving up and picking up my kids and marveling at how quiet it was in the front yard despite all of the kids playing in the backyard. As far as I know, no neighbor on Mayhew has ever complained to Kid Time about the noise. Similarly, and I think more relevant to this particular discussion, is the concern about traffic. But I think we need to remember that an infant and preschool center is not like an elementary school or a middle school. In elementary school and middle school, they get out all at the same time. You have 350 kids who get out at the same time and a corresponding number of parents who line up to pick their kids up for 20 minutes in advance. That's just not what happens at a preschool. At a preschool like Kid Time, kids go home at staggered times to meet the parents' particular needs. In the 6 years that my children were at Kid Time, I think there were no more than 4 other parents picking up their kids at the same time. And I can attest, they do tell you to get out of there. Not just for the traffic concerns, but it's also better for the kid to know, okay, it's time to drop off and mom's gonna go. Nope, it's time to pick up and you're gonna go with mom. So they really do enforce that really, very strictly. Finally, I just want to say Kid Time is a wonderful place for children to receive care. and its proposed expansion is a testament to how popular they are in the community. Having an additional location will provide a valuable opportunity for more children to receive the quality early childhood care and education that Kid Time offers, and I urge your support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Zella Wilson.
I just wanted to offer myself up for questions and to address the panel. I have my two children here who have been at 3 separate sites from 2019 till present day. And Kid Time is absolutely wonderful. Whatever they do, I put my entire trust and faith in them. I've seen terrible things happen to terrible children. I used to be an employee of the FBI. My mother's a police officer, and now I'm an attorney. And so I wouldn't trust my children with just anyone, but I would definitely trust my children with them. If you have any questions, I'm willing to help. From a parent. No? Okay.
This is really a time for public comment.
No, that's
So,
fine. That's fine.
but we thank you for that, and we thank you for bringing the boys along. They're doing a great job. And if I could ask a question right now, it'd be how are your boys so well behaved here? Because I can't do that, but.
So this is their Kid Time kids.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close public comment, commission discussion. Do we have anything we want to talk about? How do we feel about the consistency with the space and the other surrounding businesses?
The adjacent
Mhm.
use issue.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, honestly, of course, we'd rather have it in a commercial use that is generating tax dollars. You know, it is a concern. That said, you know, we're seeing those types of sites being lost to other uses that are, you know, needed by the community. And I think this is one of them. We've never really seen a daycare center go into this type of site before. It's usually been farther off of the main street. And so in that sense, I'm not particularly happy with what's happening with that space, but I understand that things are changing out there and that there is a need that this service certainly meets. There's the good news about that site is how accessible it is and how easy it is for traffic to move in and out of it. They're going to have to be a little bit careful out there on CCB, but nonetheless, it works and it's got, you know, adequate space for drop off and pickup. And I think there's a lot to be said for how it works operationally. So, not happy about losing sales tax dollars, but you know, it's, if we need to do that, then I think this is a good use for that area. Are we pretty much talking about just that use or want to, that issue or?
I started there. If you had any other comments though,
Oh, yeah.
now's a good
I
time.
have comments. My comments are about that rear area. I don't know how many people have been out there, but you know, basically the rear of that building, right, backs up to Pep Boys. And there are 12 service bays at Pep Boys. So a major concern here is it's not an unused rear area. Cars pull out of one of the service bays. Ideally, they would go straight out onto CCB. But, you know, if they get impatient, they're going to be circling around the rear of the lot and coming past that play area. So I would say my major concern is security of the play area because this is a trafficked area. CJ's, by the way, right now has a little tent out there that they use for sitting outside, and they have like 3-foot tall orange plastic bollards protecting their play areas. So, I mean, yeah, play area, that's what it is, I guess. But in any event, their version of a play area, they're protecting their little tent. So you know that traffic is an issue back there. That's it's my major concern right now with that resolution, but I was happy to hear that, the applicant's been working with staff on that. So I would just say that from a commission standpoint, the way that the condition is written right now is that that would be worked out between staff and the applicant. But I think that we have an opportunity here to kind of reinforce what the commission thinks would be a safe solution. Ultimately, it'll be worked out between the two of them, but I would just like to propose that we consider at least 2.5 to 3 feet of concrete and then the wall on top of it. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments?
To tag on to Commissioner Vavrick's comments, I agree to the extent that that protection wall could be similar to another daycare situation that we reviewed. I think it might have been last year. That's on Oak Park that has Belden blocks or some type of section of concrete block that's not unattractive with planting so that it acts as a more protective buffer against vehicular incidents. Hopefully not, but should there be any. I actually wondered if there was a way to have the play area in the front section fronting, the frontage section fronting CCB rather than in that narrow strip along the back of the tenant front, the rear frontage. It would potentially be a larger area. The entry into the parking area would change, but it could potentially be a more appropriately sized area for play. So that's something I would urge the applicant to consider. Separately, I think I'm not sure when to bring this up, but we are seeing situations where we have uses, mixed uses in retail business areas regarding privacy graphics. And I'd like to bring that up as a question for the commission to maybe work with staff or have staff review the ordinances around privacy graphics for our consideration, because we are going to see more mixed uses, I would hope, in some of these older retail areas. So I said a lot of things there, but I would hope that the applicant would reconsider their play area. I think that I agree with Commissioner Vavrick on the protection fence, a more robust version of a protection fence, and then the last would be the privacy graphics.
Any other comments?
I mean, I know there are a couple of issues that we need to talk through, so I don't know how you want to, do you want to go through each one of them or?
Whatever you think is best. I wanted to talk a little bit about just how consistent it is with the other buildings around the site. So if you had some comments on that, let's
Yeah,
start there.
I don't have a major issue. I mean, the way I see it, the site's vacant right now, so it's not like there's a other option here, at least not right now. So I'm fine with that. And frankly, I mean, consumer behavior is changing quite rapidly. So I don't know how you address that. We may have to rethink how we do things too. So I don't have a problem with that. I did want to comment to something that you said about the play area. I'm not sure you want it on Contra Costa side, to be honest with you. I mean, I would be kind of worried about that, frankly. And maybe that's something that the applicant can think about as an option. My concern would be, there's higher speeds on that side. There's maybe more of a potential of a car coming off. Hopefully not, but I just worry about that. In terms of the fence, I think what I heard from the applicant was that they're open to having that discussion. So, I'm certainly okay with that if it makes it a little bit tighter over there. And then the parking discussion, the only question I have, and I think it's more for staff than anything, is that I think the discussion today is really based around current conditions of sort of what's going on there. And what happens if we have sort of changing situations with other tenants and now we don't have enough parking?
So because this is a shopping center parked at 1 per 250, if it depends on what use goes in. So if it's a permitted use, say it's another restaurant or retail space, they're already figured into that 1 per 250. If it's another type of use that requires a use permit, they would then come back to the planning commission and they would also do a similar transportation assessment
Right.
and their own analysis. So those would be the two likely
Right,
scenarios.
but it wouldn't be on this applicant to sort of have that conversation.
No, it would be on whatever the new applicant would be.
I understand that. I'm saying that because we're reducing based on current situation right now. And I'm okay with that, by the way. I don't think that that's an issue. So, okay.
All right, any other comments?
On the upside, with the location in a commercial area, is we have, I think it said it was 550 feet from the nearest residential site. So we don't have any concerns about residential impact. So that's, I saw that as a positive. The other tenants besides CJ Saloon are restaurants pretty much. So I'm hopeful that maybe the foot traffic or the drop-off pickup traffic might inspire some participation in dining at the local sites. And I appreciated also the comment about you're right down the street from Target and how many times you need to go to Target when you, so I am optimistic that what we have in that area commercially may benefit from this type of a use at this location. I agree with the concerns about the fence. I'm very nervous anytime we have children near a busy street like Contra Costa Boulevard. And again, with the Pep Boys bays, I think that's a point well taken. So I do hope you look at that for the safety of your customers. But generally, I'm supportive. I don't see anything here that is a huge concern.
Yeah, I think that we can reasonably predict that the drive-through line at In-N-Out is going to get longer. But that's a good thing. I do think that, I think that as Commissioner Vavrick said, this is something that we haven't really had before, but I think that's okay. I think that the spaces are changing. I do think, given the nature of this space, I understand the concern about potential revenue for the city, but I do think that will just be offset by people using the center. So at least somewhat. So that doesn't bother me so much. I completely share Commissioner Vavrick's and really it seems like the commission's concern about the fence. And if we were to put something, if we were able to or wanted to put something in which would reference specifically a concrete foot to that fence, I would be absolutely in support of that. And as far as the parking line item is concerned, the only thing that we can do is what we have with the information right now, right? And the information we have right now is that it works. So as far as those items are concerned, I'm in support of the project. So do we have a motion, or does anybody have anything else they want to say before?
Chair Field, just in response to Commissioner Vavrick's and I think a couple of your concerns about the fence. So I don't believe that just having concrete and brick solves the problem. And our condition is essentially additional protective measures to the approval of the zoning administrator and the city engineer, because I think that wall fence has to be structurally built. So I would not necessarily want to just say that the first 2.5, 3 feet need to be concrete or block. I think the condition we have in here will address the safety concern, because they will have to design something that can withstand vehicles running into it, and our engineering group will be reviewing it. So
I think that's what we needed to hear. Thank you.
Okay.
That's fine.
So with that, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. A motion to approve, for the City of Pleasant Hill Planning Commission to approve a resolution, oops, I mixed up a resolution of the Planning Commission, City of Pleasant Hill, approving a conditional use permit, architectural review permit, ENT 2024-0017 for Kid Time Daycare and Event Space at 548 Contra Costa Boulevard.
Second?
May I have a vote, please?
Commissioner Chiang,
Yes.
Commissioner Colvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Vavrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
and Chair Field.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Then we are going to close the public hearing and move on to discussion items. Current planning projects. Do the commission have any questions on current planning projects for staff?
Well, before you jump to that one, I think you skipped the Diversity Commission recommendation.
Oh, skipped it.
Before we get to discussion, then, does the commission have a recommendation for an appointment to the Diversity Commission?
I have volunteered to serve on that.
Oh,
committee.
wonderful.
If you guys are okay with it,
Fine.
We would be very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
of course.
Okay. Does that take care of that line item?
Why don't you take a vote on that, just to be safe? Because the city
Just to
council-
lock him in?
City council is essentially going to take your recommendation and take formal action. So,
So does that mean we need a vote?
sure.
Okay, then, since he's volunteered, does that mean that somebody, can I have a second to that, or do I need somebody
You
to?
can second it and you can just vote.
Okay,
So we're voting.
we're having a second.
Recommend.
I need a second to,
I'd like to second Alex
Thank you.
Coughlin.
may I have a
as
vote,
the-
please?
Commissioner Chiang,
Yes.
Commissioner Colvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Vavrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Chair Field.
Yes. Thank you very much. Then moving on to discussion items, does the commission have any questions for staff on current projects? Okay, hearing none. Any staff communications?
None this evening.
Okay, commissioner reports on meetings or conferences attended at the city expense. I don't think we had any, no. Announcements, just briefly, I will be away. I'll be out of town for the next commission meeting, so make sure all the hard items come in 2 weeks. I know.
I am. Just making notes.
That's Troy's always paying attention. Okay, any other announcements or anything from the rest of the commission? No? All right, then it is 8:08 PM and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.